People always ask what the proper recovery pace time should be as a runner. I know some runners that are 145 guys who don't go faster than 640s or 7 flats. And I know some guys like myself who love pushing the 610s, 605s, 620s, and 630s in the recovery runs.
Not only is that statement wrong, but I'm about to expose to you that he doesn't even follow his own advice. Now, that may be a little harsh, but I wanted to start off this video by saying this is not a hate video. I have nothing against him. I don't know him personally. All I know about him is what I see online, and it's strictly professional what I'm about to say in this video. Now, with that being said, I do think he's spreading a little bit of false information to younger viewers, younger runners, and I think it could be detrimental to their running longevity or career if they took this advice at first glance and at face value. I think it's a little bit misleading what he says and the way that he goes about it. And the reason I wanted to call this out is I think it's a big problem in the running industry as a whole of just spreading misinformation. That's why I personally don't like to give too much advice with running. I just want to give you maybe a race plan. I don't want to tell you how to train. I think that training is something that's so personal and so fidgety that you just can't really put it to a hole. And I don't like spreading information that I know I don't know enough about training. I just do what my coach tells me. In high school, I trained way too hard. I didn't know what I was doing when I was training in high school, and I thought I knew what I was doing, but I was training way too hard. And I think that's a main problem with a lot of high school runners. And that's kind of why I wanted to show this video. I wanted to talk about why things like this are a problem. And I also wanted to call it out as I see it. I see it how it is type of guy. I call out what I see, and that's what I say. But enough rambling. Let's get into the topic of today's video. So in that video, he states that he runs his recovery runs at about 6 flat to 620 pace. While that may appear true, we must remember that he is not exactly a high mileage individual, roughly hitting about 30 miles a week. And in those recovery runs, he actually takes quite a bit of rest. Me personally, I've been known to take a rest. Every once in a while, you have to piss. Don't be afraid to stop to pee on a run, but don't be stopping to rest on an easy or recovery run, because that just means you're going too hard. If your body can't handle running at that pace, maybe you're going a little bit too fast. Just a friendly reminder. And here you can see I have countless times when he has ran a recovery run at a 6 low pace, and it's actually been an average of about 7:30. He's taking quite a bit of rest. That makes it a lot easier to run that fast. He's also only running about 5 to 6 miles for his recovery days. Other distance runners, such as myself, would call that a small double. We run that in the afternoon or the evening after a big, longer run to get in mileage. And that's why I think it's kind of dangerous to look at it, because a lot of people see him and they think that he knows everything about distance running when he is kind of barely a distance runner in a sense. He's more of a short sprinter. He runs the 4x4, he runs the 600, and he runs the 800. He hasn't ran anything really above an 800. He has ran an 1,000 sometimes, but nothing really beyond that. So we don't take his information and his advice if you're a longer distance runner, which I think a lot of his fans are. Just back to the subject. So yeah, he's doing these recovery runs, and he's doing them fast. He's calling them recovery runs, but realistically, these are more of the easy runs, He calls them recovery runs, but what I think a recovery run is something you do after a hard session or a session that just hurts and you need to slow it down, slower than your usual easy pace. What he's doing is what you would call easy pace, but he claims it's a recovery run. And he does not seem to want to take the other stance by it. He doesn't want to show empathy and think about other people's shoes and understand what people are saying to him. He just kind of says that they're wrong, they're dumb, he's right. And I think that's a little bit of arrogance. Don't want not too much hate. It's good to have arrogance. I myself have a little bit of an ego sometimes. As a distance runner, you have to have an ego. As an athlete, you have to have an ego. But sometimes it just gets out of hand. And I've had it myself. Sometimes you get in a little bit of a yelling match with your teammates, but you just hash it out and you just become a better person afterwards. But I think he needs to think about it from the other perspective. All these guys telling me he's to slow down his recovery runs or recovery runs shouldn't be that fast are guys that are distance runners. They have hit high miles. They know what a recovery run really is, and they don't really see the terminology. He's using the wrong terminology, and I don't think he really realizes that. And I think that's what's so detrimental to showing this to younger audiences, because these guys are seeing this and they think, oh, if my recovery runs should be that fast, maybe my easy runs should be faster. Or maybe my easy runs should be 7 flat pace when you're like a 17:30 guy. You know, a lot of the younger viewers watching him, which I believe that most of his viewers are younger audience, as you can see from the comments and the way he kind of makes his videos. It's more of a younger audience he's catering to, opposed to above the college level. You know, and most distance runners are a younger age. Most distance runners are high schoolers, middle schoolers, because it's not a sport that a lot of people are really, really into as they age and get older. But the thing about that is that you're going to a young audience that don't really understand what to do, and you're telling them that their recovery runs need to be fast. And they don't really understand why. And you don't really make any valid points in any of your videos of why it should be fast. Like, yeah, recovery runs can be fast because they help build fitness. But the way recovery runs are supposed to be is they're not supposed to build fitness.
My personal belief is the faster you go on your recovery runs, the more fitness you build throughout the seasons. 6:20 to 6:30 and even the 6:10 is a good recovery pace on those runs.
I wouldn't really classify any of my runs as recovery runs, because most of the time when I would do quote-unquote recovery, it's just an easy day. You know, it's supplemental mileage. You're not recovering. You are recovering, but you're not purposely slowing down for a recovery pace. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people think that recovery runs is slowing it down slower than your easy pace, and the way that he talks about it is more of just an everyday easy pace. And I think that's detrimental because a lot of people could get injured from running that fast. He does not say anything about how fast you should be when running these paces.
It's all preference, and it's all about what you're able to handle with your fitness.
It says that 7 flat pace and 6 flat pace are good easy run paces, which is just very untrue. Very few people run 6 flat pace or even below 7-minute pace for their easy runs. I personally like to stay around 7.0s is most of my easy runs are at, and that's probably too fast, but you know, I got a little bit of ego. I like to push pace. I'm not afraid to say it. And I just run that fast because all the guys around me are running that fast, and I like to run that fast. It just feels good on my body. I haven't had any problems so far, haven't had any injuries. But you look at a guy like Graham Blanks, who's really, really good, and part of why he's really, really good is because he runs his easy paces at 6 flat pace. But he's injured a lot. His whole indoor season was just gone because his recovery pace / easy run pace was way too fast. And that's a problem. Maybe not a problem for him because, you know, he's been able to find success from it. But as a high school athlete, you can't be getting injured. I think that if a high school athlete is getting injured from like a bone injury, it's usually something wrong with the coaching. You're probably overtraining, and you see it a lot, sadly. Sadly, you see it a lot in high school because, you know, most high school coaches, no, I don't blame them. They don't really know what they're doing. And that's okay because no one really knows what they're doing in the running industry. But I think spreading this kind of false information, you know, while he does it, it works for him. He's a 800-meter runner who does not run a lot of mileage. And he's been doing it for a long time. You have to remember this guy is like a senior. He is older than all of his audience. And he's telling them to run this recovery pace at this pace. When realistically, a high schooler should not be running a recovery pace at 7 minutes. 7:30, I think, is about the max for high school athletes. You know, if you're like really, really good, you can run faster. But you look at guys who are fast, they don't run recovery paces or easy pace. They don't care about recovery or easy pace. I don't understand why people obsess around this. You just go what feels easy. It's off of feel. That's what easy means. You can't tell how easy it is by looking at your watch or looking at your heart rate. I've already made a video about this, okay? You know my stance on this. Easy / recovery pace is not a real thing. It's an effort, okay? There is no pace. It's effort. And people just can't seem to understand that it's different for everyone and that it's not usually going to be fast, okay? Easy pace should not be 6 flat pace unless you're like Graham Blanks and it's working for him. But if you look at the Harvard roster, it does not work for a lot of guys. A lot of their roster is often injured, and we see it across the board, but people still claim they like to make it work by looking at outliers. Oh my gosh, Steve Prefontaine ran 5-minute pace for his easy runs. He ran 6 flat pace for his easy runs. Look at him and how good he was. He was a genetic outlier, okay? All these guys that are really, really good running that fast, you're not them. Why would you use them as Why would you use them as an example? You're not as good as them. I mean, I don't understand it. Like, people in the comments are saying, look at all these great guys who run 6.5 pace for easy runs. You are not as fit as them. What can you not get through your head? Oh my, sorry for the rant there, but like, you're not as good as them. You are nowhere near the fitness level of them to be running 6 flat pace for easy runs. They didn't get there running 6 flat pace for their easy runs. They got there running slower, easy runs, and eventually over time they got so fit that they needed to run that fast for their easy runs. I mean, they just think that the training back then, another thing is that they claim that the training back then was better. The times were slower, people were getting injured more, and people's careers were not as long. I mean, you can claim what you want, but people did not know what they were doing back then. People were running crazy workouts in high school, overtraining in high school. You look across the board, it's not normal to be running 70 miles a week nowadays as a high schooler. But back then, they were doing crazy workouts and repeats. But that's a story for a different day. Let's get back to the topic at hand. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little bit ranty here. But yeah, he's just spreading false information. I'm not really going to dwell too much on it because, I'm not a scientist. Neither is he. No one really knows how fast your easy runs should be. No one knows how fast your recovery runs are. Just don't listen to these influencers who think they know everything because they've ran a fast time. I hate to say it, but there are a lot of people out there that are slow. Let's look at all the best coaches in the world. Mark Wetmore, he has said himself, he is not fast, but he is one of the greatest coaching masterminds of the world. Mike Smith, he was an all right runner. He ran like 2:16 in the marathon. I don't really know what he did in high school or college, but he was never crazy, crazy good. But look at how good his athletes are. Those who can't do, they teach. So a lot of the best coaches in the world were never great athletes. Look at like all the great college coaches. I mean, they weren't that fast. Oh, Sean Bronson, semi-pro. He was never that crazy good as his athletes were, He just learned a lot about the game, perfect his craft, People just kind of take talent at this face value and they think that just because people are talented and fast, that they know what they're talking about. But a lot of the best coaches in the world, Bill Bowerman, Mark Wetmore, Sean Bronson, Mike Smith, coaching legends, they themselves were not as great as the athletes they coach. Those who cannot do, teach, okay? So I just want you to remind yourself of that every time you see a video about someone trying to tell you what you're doing is wrong or try to tell you how you do your training, that they don't know what they're doing. No one has this figured out. A lot of people are closer and closer to figure out. Some people have more figured out than others, but everyone's just trying to figure out how can they make their athletes as good as they can be. And it's such a personal thing to an athlete that you can't just take it and you put it across a whole spectrum of people. And I hope after watching this video, you become a little bit more skeptical. I didn't say that right. Skeptical, whatever you call it, of people posting online on the internet telling you how they should train or how you should train. Because it doesn't work all the time. And a lot of people are just really talented and most people are overtraining. I'm overtraining for sure. And most people don't know what they're doing. I hope you enjoyed this video. That does it. No hate against anyone. Peace out. I'll see you next week.